Here with Chuck Yagla getting inducted as a distinguished member of the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. I mean, you're in the Hall of Fame already as a referee, but what was it like when you got the phone call and said, hey, we want you to be a distinguished member for your overall impact on wrestling? That had to be kind of unique.
Yeah, very unique and a big surprise, actually. You know, having gone in previously as an official, I really didn't think there was any reason to go in again. And people ask me that, you know, would you ever go in as a distinguished member? And I said, well, I don't think so, because I'm already in. Yeah. So it was a great surprise and obviously a tremendous honor. I mean, it's great to go in the Hall of Fame, but I have to admit, going in as a distinguished member, you know, that's the ultimate, that's the biggest prize. So very, very humbled and very thrilled and very excited to be going in.
So how'd you get into wrestling? I mean, you're out of Iowa, right?
I got into wrestling mostly because of a brother 2 years older than me. We both like sports, and we were involved in all sports, and we went to a parochial grade school. And when I was in 5th grade, he was in 7th grade. That was the first year they started a wrestling program. So we both said, oh, let's give it a try. So because we played football, we played basketball, we played baseball, tennis, golf, you name it. But we both decided to try wrestling, and we both fell in love with it. So, you know, been doing it ever since.
When did you figure out you were pretty good at it? I mean, you know.
Oh, I think by the time I got to high school, I realized that I was pretty good. I mean, back in my day, we really didn't have any competition in junior high. You just pretty much practiced, and you had a few scrimmages with a couple other local schools, but no real tournaments like they have now or competition. But then when I got to high school, I realized I'm probably not going to be big enough for football. And I liked baseball and golf a lot, but I think I just realized wrestling fit me better than any of those sports, and had a better opportunity to succeed in wrestling.
So why the University of Iowa? And tell me a little bit. I mean, you were in some of the early years when they really started making that into the elite program it is.
Yeah, I was in the early years. You know, when I was in high school, I was not real successful. I was a runner-up in the state of Iowa, which is still good. So I was not heavily recruited. I pretty much narrowed my choices down to the University of Northern Iowa or the University of Iowa. And at that time, it was announced Dan Gable was going to be, his first year as assistant coach would be my first year as a freshman, and Gary Kurtelmeyer was his first year as head coach. So Coach Kurtelmeyer, he's the one that actually recruited me quite a bit, and you know, talked me into coming there. I actually went there as a walk-on with an academic scholarship for tuition, you know, with the understanding that if I did well, I could earn an athletic scholarship. And I also had two brothers that were in school at the University of Iowa at the time. My older brother Steve was actually on the wrestling team and at the University of Iowa, and I had older brother Dave that was starting his first year of law school at the University of Iowa. So, you know, they had a big influence on me too. So it seemed like the right fit for me to go to the University of Iowa and join my brothers and be there and be part of that. You know, I feel honored to be part of that, the start of the so-called dynasty back then.
Right, and at that time, Kurtelmeyer was being creative. Gable was pushing you guys to new levels, yep. And Iowa went from a good wrestling school to a great one. Do you take a little pride in being one of the people that kind of set the table for the next, well, generations, really?
Oh, yeah, I take a lot of pride in being actually the start of what became, you know, a great program. You know, like I said, my freshman year with Coach Gable there, that's when we still weren't that great. But then by the time I was a junior, I won my first national title, and we won our first national championship as a team my junior year. So, you know, to be at the start of that, and you know, at the time you didn't really realize what you were being a part of, but now you look back and say, wow, you know, to be the beginning of what proved to be a great dynasty in wrestling, it was very, very special.
When did you get the Olympic dream? Was it something you thought about in college, or?
I thought about it a little bit in college, not a lot. You know, I was a senior in 1976. You know, I won my second national title, and that's when, after finishing that, that's when I really started thinking about it a lot more. And I actually tried out for the 76 team, and ended up becoming an alternate for the 1976 team behind Lloyd Kieser. Had really close matches with him, and he ended up obviously making the team and ended up getting a silver medal. You know, so the fact that I had close matches with him, and knowing I was very close to making the team, and seeing his success, I got to go to Montreal and watch him compete. You know, I realized I was really close, to that level of competition. So that really got me motivated and set my dream on making the 1980 Olympic team and winning a gold medal in Moscow.
Yeah, and you were able to do that, but you clearly had to do a lot of work to improve to get to the point where you could make an Olympic team. That 4 years had to have been a real important time in your life as a wrestler.
Oh yeah, there's a changeover obviously from folk style to freestyle. I was fortunate after I graduated to become an assistant coach at the University of Iowa. back then we didn't have any stipends or anything like they do now for amateur wrestlers, like through USA Wrestling. So you had to find another job. So the natural thing was to be an assistant coach somewhere. So for me to be able to be an assistant coach at the University of Iowa and work with the team and train with the team at the same time as trying to make world teams and make the Olympic team, it was a perfect environment for me and gave me the opportunity, to travel overseas a little bit and to do some training and to make some teams and get ready for 1980.
So you make the Olympic team, and then the president announces a boycott. Years later now, I mean, looking back, you got any thoughts about that experience? Because there's only so many people, and not just wrestlers, but other athletes that went through that kind of experience.
Yeah, at that time there were 450 athletes on the Summer Olympic team. And, at the time, I thought it might accomplish something. I probably was a little naive. I had been to the Soviet Union twice before on trips and realized what it was like over there. And their economy was so backwards compared to ours. And I thought, well, maybe they would have propagandized, the Olympics and make them look better than they really are. So, but in the long run, obviously, it didn't accomplish anything. And, I'm more bitter now probably today than I was back then just because of what was taken from me. The opportunity that was taken from me, along with 450 other athletes, had a tremendous opportunity taken away from us.
So a lot of people like to stay in wrestling, but you went to the dark side. I mean, you decided to be a referee. How did that even come to your mind? And why was it something that you really wanted to pursue and excel at?
I was assistant coach, like I said, for 5 years after I graduated, and then decided, I would have liked to have been the head coach of the University of Iowa someday, but I realized with Gable being 6 years older than me, that would be a long wait. So I decided to get out of coaching, start a career in banking, but I wanted to stay involved, and I always liked the rules. I always, enjoyed, being knowledgeable about the rules. So I thought, well, I'll give officiating a try. And with my background, I kind of had an unfair advantage compared to other officials where college coaches, they would hire me, right away. So I pretty much jumped right into college officiating and didn't really officiate high school, and actually enjoyed it because it kept me involved. I mean, I was traveling around then, still able to see the people I had met through wrestling, the coaches. A lot of the coaches were guys that I knew from wrestling and guys that I competed against even. So it was a great way for me to stay involved, and I enjoyed it and felt like I was good at it and could give something back to the sport. So yeah, it was kind of a little bit of a different thing to go from coaching into officiating, like you said.
So what was the same as being an athlete and a referee, and what's different? I mean, you're on the mat. And
you're on the mat. I felt like I had to stay in shape. I had to be on top of things. What's different is I felt like I had to really be on top of my game every match. Where when you're an athlete, when you're on a team, you just have to worry about yourself. You don't have to worry about everybody else. But when you're out there officiating, you have to be on your game every match that comes up. You can't take any breaks and can't, not pay attention the whole time. So you really have to stay focused, and I really felt like I had to stay in shape. I mean, probably not. It's not near the conditioning level as being a wrestler, but you still felt like you had to stay in good shape and be able to move around quickly on the mat and be on top of things.
So, as a wrestling person, how do you want to be remembered? Athlete, coach, referee? I mean, you've kind of done it all.
Yeah, I just want to be remembered as somebody that I think enjoyed the sport, gave a lot to the sport, and loved the sport. I mean, I've always been involved in it, and yeah, I've been in all phases. I'm thoroughly enjoying now just being a fan. I still go to nationals every year. My first national tournament I went to was when I was a sophomore in 1974, at Iowa State University. I've been to every national tournament since then. So, I've got a good streak going, and I want to continue to go every year as long as I'm healthy and can still, of course, cheer on my Hawkeyes.
Any match in your mind that sticks out as an athlete, that's just maybe one you're real proud of, or one that you just comes to mind when you think about competition?
Oh, when I think about competition, probably the ones that come to mind are my national championships in college. My junior year when I beat Lee Kemp in the finals on a split referee's decision, that obviously was a huge match. It prevented him from being a four-time national champion. And of course, it was my first national title, so that one comes to mind quite often. And then the following year, I beat Pete Yagla from Iowa State, he was a senior and I was a senior, and we had a lot of battles over the years with Iowa and Iowa State. And he actually, when we were freshmen, beat me 11-1 and pinned me. We wrestled twice that year, so I came a long ways, and to be able to beat him in the finals of nationals, and then be named the outstanding wrestler, that really came as a surprise to me. That wasn't something I really thought about at the time. Now I think it's thought about a lot more, but just out of the blue, they named me the outstanding wrestler. And again, looking back on history, I was the first Iowa wrestler to ever be named the outstanding wrestler. I think there's been a total of 10, so that's something else I'm very proud of, that I was the first ever Hawkeye to be named the outstanding wrestler at the NCAA tournament.
Well, hey, we want to congratulate you, Chuck. I mean, you've done a lot for wrestling. You're clearly someone that's real supportive of the whole, and you get a chance to go through this special experience again this weekend. Thanks a lot for your time, man.
No, thank you.